Thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the celebration of poetry across languages. April is National Poetry Month, and so the goal of today's program is to bring more poetry to Chula Vista. As you can see on our program, we are lucky to have many outstanding poets presenting their work for us today. My name is Jeff Bettger. I live here in Chula Vista. I've been a realtor here for the past 25 years. About 3 years ago, my father became very ill. While I was awake late at night caring for him, I started writing poetry. That is how my journey began. And I have met so many wonderful people along the way. I hope that today's event will encourage you to write poetry, whether it is a 3-line haiku or a full Shakespearean sonnet. The process of writing poetry is worth it. A quick announcement, we will have a short 10-minute intermission between Robert Chan's and Ronald Lauderbach's presentation. So with that, let's begin. Our first poet will be, I'm happy to introduce Joseph Milosch. During the past 40 years, Joe has worked as a trail locator for the Cleveland National Forest and as a heavy construction inspector in the private sector. His poetry draws on those experiences as his experiences growing up in the farmland north of Detroit, Michigan, and his Army experiences during the Vietnam War. Besides working as a construction inspector, he has taught English composition, literature, creative writing, technical writing, and linguistics at National University Vincennes University and San Diego State University. Joe has 4 books. San Diego City Library selected his latest book, A Walk with Breast Cancer, for a local poet book award. His book, Home Plate was the Heart, and Other Stories, was nominated for the American Book Award and the Eric Hoffer Best Small Press publication. In addition, Joe was very kind to me when I was first starting writing poetry, giving me some hints and tips, which I really appreciated. So after Joe reads a couple of his poems, we're going to have a special treat. One of his poems was selected to be made into like a music video, which you'll see, which is really neat. Joe, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to begin, I always begin by dedicating my poetry readings to my wife, who passed away several years ago, Patsy. Hey, amore, siempre. Patsy, I love you forever. This is, I was very fortunate to grow up with my great uncles and my grandfather. When I got drafted, my grandfather took me out to the barn and he said, Grandma wants me to cut your little finger off. You won't miss it, it'll keep you out of the draft. And I said, no thanks, I'll take my chances. But anyway, so I'm going to read a poem about my grandfather. It has nothing to do with him cutting off my fingers. Grandfather. He talked as if enduring himself to me was not the reason he taught me to drive, taught me how to set a spark plug gap. I remember the hose under the kitchen porch. Grandfather's thumb pulled down his bottom lip as he rinsed out old chew and washed his hands. I drove him past a stump, a burned down barn, a rusting pump, a gate where blackbirds perched. His quick eyes caught pheasants above the corn, the train's shadow on stalks. He knew the time required to drive across the tracks and asked, can you beat it? Then bared his gold rim too. If we could take a drive through Michigan, his thumbs thumping the steering wheel, he'd talk about the bridge at Mackinac, and I wouldn't dream of light beneath a brass-edged door, a cricket singing in his fist, and wait to raise the blind and see a hawk in flight. Thank you. little sidebar. First poem I ever memorized. Poor little upside down tape. Your top is on your bottom. It drove my mother crazy because I taught it to all my 6 brothers. But anyway, this is called A Landscape of a Childhood. I could have stayed home like my more industrious brothers, Mike and John. One learned to cut wood in a straight line, the other learned piano scales. I could have stayed home and studied geography or read Robinson Crusoe. Perhaps it was my mother's fault for calling me her little Rip Van Winkle. In late autumn, I cut across cornfields to trees screening the edge of a beaver pond. Eventually, I found a stump and sat to watch the snow fall as I smelled the last of autumn. So, I worked on the 405 during Carmageddon. And during Carmageddon, I was the alternate inspector, so they put me up in the Marriott Hotel on Wilshire Boulevard in the 405, and I had to sit in the swimming pool all day waiting for them to call me. But it was really a great job. Got to work with Nassau. They did real-time help when we were moving bridges and stuff. But one thing I found was that because of the place the homeless vets get their drugs was the Veterans Hospital on Wilshire, just south of Wilshire. They would live in the area, so I got to see a lot of our homeless vets. And this is called The Homeless Art. Under an overpass, a sleeping bag is shaped like a U as it drapes over a shopping cart containing shirts, pants, boots, and bags of bottle. Dripping from the bag, water puddles. His dog drinks. A man leans against his basket. He peers through that U that he forms with his thumb and his 4 fingers. He watches the rain falling outside the bridge. Do the dandelion blooms at the curb's edge bore him? No one dreams of inverting the bridge into an arched U-shaped vessel for the homeless. Opening his toothless mouth in a scream, he yells, you, at the traffic and the cars. The cars pass him, slow and unstoppable. Thank you. On this video, we would like to acknowledge Al Williams, who put the video together. He did the AI and wrote the music.
sing to my lover who has died. I sing about my arms, they long to hold her. Now I am that cricket, and I sing to my lover who has died. I sing about my arms, they long to hold her. When we were in this bed last April, the odor of the orange blossoms covered us like dew, and I said, listen, a cricket has found his way into our room. He sings to his lover who cannot find him. Now I am that cricket, and I sing to my lover who has died. I sing about my arms, they long to hold her. Now I am that cricket, and I sing to my lover who has died. I sing about my arms, they long to hold her.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Joe, thank you for being here today. Thank you for what you've done for me, and thank you for what you've done to poetry in San Diego County all these years. All right. We're so lucky next to have Dr. Adrian Arancibia. Originally from Chile, Dr. Arancibia graduated from Galina High School and then UC San Diego with his PhD. He is a founding member of the Taco Shop Poets, which perform poetry and music at a grassroots level and grew to national fame. He is now on the board of trustees for the Sweetwater Union High School District and a professor at Miramar College. And did I mention he's a super nice guy? He's also a judge for the San Diego Poetry Annual. Adrian will read his beautiful poem Leaves in English and then in Spanish.
I'm supposed to talk about how I got into poetry. My experience with poetry is up in Chile. And Chile has two poet laureates. It's a very small country, maybe 13, 15 million people, has two Nobel laureates in poetry. Galina Marcus and Pablo Neruda. But at the same time, the popular version of poetry is always around in terms of having folks that are singing poems or performing poems with guitars, some of the groups. And so I grew up in a house that always had that, at least that was in the background. As I got older, I went to UC Berkeley for my first couple of years of college and really got into writing, literature. I ended up coming and finishing up at UCSD, and I got a chance to work with Quincy Troop, with one of my mentors. And he kind of was really influential in terms of my poetry as well as acupuncture, who was Latin America's foremost critic in poetry and literature. I wrote this collection really, I've been really focused, my medium in critical work really focuses on spatiality and space, both urban and rural, as kind of a reflection of the experiences of working class folks and how they reflect their reality through it. So for example, I worked with an artist up at the Athenaeum Museum. He's a colleague of mine over at Mesa College. And he asked me, like, I'm gonna create a kind of cathedral. So I said, okay, let me write about a cathedral. And I'll create a little booklet. And it was about 15, 20 pieces on my family beach home in Chile. And I kind of used that as a metaphor, as a sacred space that kind of functions as a church. After that, I worked on another piece. And this is called 29, which is a real address over in San Juan Capistrano, where it was kind of very similar. My when we came to the United States, the Methodist Church sponsored us. And my father's teaching was very instrumental. One of my father's teachers and his wife actually lives now, ironically, in Chula Vista, but they were really influential to us because they always offered their home, which they rented a house at the edge of an orchard. And we're really, really generous in letting us stay there every weekend in the summertime. And it's kind of really beautiful to stay and live in an orchard. We've never had that experience. And when you see raccoons, you see everything. So I began reflecting a lot on that. This is kind of a meditation on that and my father's spaces. It's called Leaves. You never understand leaves until you walk in orange grove next to a farmhouse that has well water. You never see the earth and its 1,000,001 turns until you see the humblest of things and you really see them, the leaves. I've walked by 1,000 trees in my lifetime. I hear my Pa's voice in each one of them. Look at these leaves and how they're framed and dried at the ends. Look at these. They're losing their green luster. See how they're not green but lime yellow? What's wrong with the leaves, honey? Look at this guayabo's leaf. They look burnt at the ends. Look at the Chilean guayabo that we contrabanded in, honey. 6 years that leaves grow fat and generous but no fruit. And in frustration, after the 6th year, he shouts at the guayabo. He says, all this water and you don't give anything. Next year, I'll cut you down. Empty threats my father makes in frustration. Empty threats that we learn to laugh at and remind him on that one year when the fruit finally came. The tree or vine or flower gives life, and for all the world, it's a new beginning. And I wonder if this came as my father waited for grandchildren. I wonder if it is just my father being my father. My papa. There, in Capistrano Valley, one could sense the seasons by the leaves. One could hear the churning voices of pickers in staccato Spanish, making sense of how and when the grove would be picked. If you've never seen a sycamore leaf vine, look at its back in the early fall. Look at the fuzz that grows. Look at it and see its everlasting veins that remind you our temples and birds coming together at thought. Smell it as if it is the last envelope you will sign. Smell it and feel the dried saliva smell and feel it crumble in your hands like an old cookie. The avocado leaf, it feels like an evergreen. It grows old slowly. It must stay close to the tree to nourish it as compost. Don't break the bottom of the tree out. Yeah, I know that it bites mice and rats, but the leaves nourish and maintain moisture below. The avocado needs that moisture and food to grow. You see that aguacate, that palta that was there this morning? Did you give the avocado enough vitamins to grow? The smell is neutral, but the oil is not. That oil that nourishes the earth and the trunk. How do you look at the leaves? Is it healthy? The citrus, that tangerine is healthy. The fucking thorns, Adi. The tree got me last week and I've been bleeding for a few days. No, it's not the blood thinner. It's the tree that hates me with the thorns. And that dancy and that satsuma, they don't give enough. Yeah, they smell great in October when the buds come out and they feel like the newness of the world ready to give in the January rain. Remember the pickers and how they wore heavy clothes in the middle of May just to pick those maples? Imagine a 95-degree heat and picking. There's a nogal, the walnut. The walnut is always sour, it is always humble because it knows its fruit will take 2 peelings in an oven to clear, but its leaves, they reach to the ends of continents. They say, I am here to give you the best in small crumbles. The walnut knows dryness and wants the other trees to stand up for it. It needs that respaldo that gifts give us, like assurances. We need to roast this, but we'll be happy when it comes. Your mom's looking for those ornate flowers Grandma Marilyn has in her yard. She points to and smells the peonies that smell of Aunt Bess's purse in Missouri. The leaves, they hide us in pictures and we are away, farther away and then gone. Until we can finally see the silhouettes among the trees. That reminds me of who I am, who we are. Don't forget the smell. Don't forget the smooth texture of citrus. Don't forget the thorns. Trace the lines of the veins, honey. Trace the lines of the veins of our America. Se supone que voy a leer la siguiente sección en español. Nunca he leído esto en español, o sea, tengo una traducción, pero bien pocas veces lo leo en español. Favor de ser... I rarely ever read this in Spanish. I have a Spanish version of it, right? So please be generous if I bounce around a little bit with this. Hojas. Nunca entiende las hojas hasta que uno pasea por un naranjal junto a una granja que tiene agua de pozo. Nunca ves la tierra y subió ninguna vuelta hasta que ves las cosas más humildes. Me refiero a verlas de verdad, las hojas. He pasado junto a miles de árboles a lo largo de mi vida. Oigo a la voz de mi papá en cada uno de ellos. Mira esta hoja y cómo se están deshilachando aquí y secándose en los extremos. Mira estas, se están perdiendo su brillo verde. ¿Ves cómo no son verdes sino amarillo, lima? ¿Qué les pasa a la hoja? Mira la hoja de este guayabo, parecen quemar a los extremos. Mira el guayabo chileno que hemos contrabandeado acá. 6 años, las hojas crecen gordas y generosas, pero no hay frutos. Y frustrado después del 6º año, le grita al guayabo, le dice: tanta agua y no das nada. El año que viene te corto. Amenazas vacías que mi padre hace con frustración. Amenazas vacías que aprendemos a reírnos y a recordar de ese año en que por fin llega el fruto. El árbol, la vid o la flor dan vida. Y para todo el mundo es un nuevo comienzo. Me pregunto si esto llegó mientras mi papá esperaba a los nietos. Me pregunto si es mi papá siendo mi papá. Allí en Capistrano, el valle de Capistrano, uno podía sentir las estaciones por las hojas. Se oían las voces agitadas de los recolectores en un español entrecortado que explicaba cómo y cuándo iban a recolectar. Y si nunca has visto a una hoja de un sicomoro, encuentra una. Mírala a principio de otoño. Mira la pelusa que crece. Mírala y observa sus vetas eternas que te recuerdan nuestras sienes y las palabras se unen al pensar. Huélala como si fuera el último sobre que enviarás. Huélala y siente el olor de saliva seca y siente cómo se deshace en tu mano como una galleta vieja. La hoja del aguacate se siente como una hoja perenne, envejece lentamente, debe permanecer cerca al árbol para nutrirlo como abono. No rastrilles la parte inferior del árbol. Sí, ya sé que van a invitar ratones o ratas, pero las hojas nutren y mantienen la humedad abajo. El aguacate necesita esa humedad y alimento para crecer. ¿Ves ese aguacate, esa palta que había ahí esta mañana? ¿Le diste el aguacate suficiente vitamina para crecer? El olor es neutro, pero el aceite no. Ese aceite nutre la tierra alrededor del tronco Ari. Mira las hojas, están sanas las hojas. Los cítricos, esa mandarina está saludable. Esas malditas espinas, Ari. Ese árbol me agarró la semana pasada y he estado sangrando por unos días. No es el anticoagulante. Es el árbol que me odia con las espinas. Ese dancy y ese satsuma no dan lo suficiente. Sí, huelen muy bien en octubre cuando salen los brotes y se sienten como la novedad del mundo listo para dar en la lluvia de enero. Recuerda los recolectores como llevaban la ropa pesada en pleno mayo, solo para recoger esos naranjas de ombligo. Imagínate, 95 grados de calor recogiendo. Y el nogal, la nuez siempre está agria. Siempre es humilde porque sabe que su fruto necesitará 2 peladas y un horno para limpiarse, pero sus hojas llegan hasta el fin de los continentes. Dicen: estoy aquí para dar lo mejor de pequeñas migajas. En lugar conoce la sequedad y quiere que otros árboles lo defiendan. Necesita ese respaldo que nos dan los regalos como seguridad, como que si necesitamos hacer esto. Pero seremos felices cuando llegue el nogal. Tu mamá busca las flores adornadas de la abuela Marilyn, que tiene ahí en su jardín. Señala y huele las peonías que huelen al bolsillo de la tía Betsy en Missouri. Las hojas nos ocultan en las imágenes. Nos alejamos y nos vamos hasta que podemos ver las siluetas entre los árboles que nos recuerdan quiénes somos. No te olvides del olor, no te olvides de la suave textura de los cítricos, no olvides de las niñas. Traza la línea de las venas, traza las líneas de las venas de nuestra vida.
Thank you so much, Adrian. The thing I love about this event is, hearing poetry in another language just hits different, and it's beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, next, we are very lucky to have Galina Marcus, who I've known for a short amount of time, but Galina is a multi-talented poet and painter, originally from Russia. She is the founder and CEO of the San Diego Art Directory, which is a website that allows artists from around San Diego to post their work and upcoming events. Galina is an inspiration to us all, and in the work that she does to try to create collaboration amongst artists and opportunities for artists. Thank you, Galina.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm very new to reciting poetry in English. I wrote, so Russian language, as was noted, is quite difficult, and Russian poetry has a very particular style, which, the classic Russian poetry got a lot from the classic European poetry, iambic foot, very limited number of lines in the verse and syllables, and the rhythm of stress in the syllables and the rhymes need to be properly placed at the end of every line. So that's how I learned back in the days, and this is how I wrote my poetry when I was in my late teens and early 20s, a lot. I just last year started trying to write in English, but this poem is almost 25 years old. And at some point I created an exercise for myself to translate it as close as I can to the original version, and also trying to keep, that rhythm that is very prone to the classical Russian poetry. So I invite you to see if you notice that. I will read it in Russian first, and then I will get to the to the English version. A little funny story about the English version. The original translation was done about 12 years ago, when I was comfortable with English, but not fluent as I am now. So in preparation for it today, I dug it out, and I decided to reread it, and I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. So it was largely retranslated, and I hope I did a good job, but that's up to you. All right. So the poem it's dedicated to my cousin, who back in our teens was a big time party girl, and we were very close, and I always wanted to spend time with her, but I couldn't catch her because she is at one party or another party or a nightclub or whatever. So this is what I wrote, and that's the Russian version. Она где-то живет на окраине, в волосах прячет запахи города. Беспокойный лисенок маленький, неприступное дело Бога. Деловая, как будто взрослая, не застать ее дома вечером. Набираю и буду снова я разговаривать с автоответчиком. Здравствуй, милая, незнакомая. Ты опять улетела ветрено, огоньками столицы векомая, духотой дискотек согретая. Я опять не поймаю за руку мотылька, что летает по небу. Ну и пусть. Попробую завтра позвониться по этому номеру. I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional. And I haven't done this in 20 years, so I'm sorry. All right, well, let's get to the English version. She lives somewhere on the outskirts, hiding the city smell in her hair. She looks like a little fox, or like an impregnable proud maiden. She's a bossy girl, fully grown. No chance of catching her on any day. When I tried to call her on the phone, the answering machine would pick up again. Hello, my dear unknown miss. You've flown with the wind into the night, drawn by the city lights into the bliss, warmed by the stuffy hot clubs. I couldn't catch you again and again. You're flying away without sorrow. Just let me touch your wing with your hand. Oh well, I will call you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Galina. Beautiful. Okay, next, my friend Robert Chan. Robert is an excellent singer and songwriter. And so I've asked him to read 3 traditional Chinese poems for children. And I think in most cultures, those children's nursery rhymes are people's first exposure to poetry type form. Thank you, Robert.
All right, hi everyone. And happy and beautiful Sunday, and all the beautiful poems and amazing stories. And thank you, Jeff, too, for this amazing and beautiful event. Please give it a So with this, a little background of myself. My name is Robert Chan, and I'm an engineer. I graduated with a computer engineering degree. And recently, I started my songwriting. I started writing my own song 3 years ago. And today, it's amazingly first time for me here, able to read 3 of the poems in Chinese, and that's my native language. And I grew up and born in Hong Kong, China, and I went to school in Hong Kong. And my native language is Cantonese. So today, very fortunately that I'm grateful that I can read out 3 of the very popular poems that we learned from a classroom in Hong Kong. And especially in China, Tang Dynasty is a very special time of the period that the age of the Chinese literature. And with that, I remember that what I learned is during the Tang Dynasty, 300 poems were written during that time. And today I have 3 here that I can share with you guys. So the first one is called Thoughts in the Silent Night. Okay, so let me read the English portion first. Moonlight reflects off the front of my bed. Could it actually be the frost on the ground? I looked up to view the bright moon and looked down to Ramses above my hometown. And in Chinese now, it's called 靜夜思, that's in Cantonese. 床前明月光，如是地上霜。舉頭望明月，低頭思故鄉。And I still remember this is one of the very, very popular poem that I learned from my classroom, and I needed to remember it and speak it during the exam. So, and I remember this is a poem that is very popular that all the kids will listen to their parents during the bedtime, just like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star here. So it's a really special poem. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so the next one is called Toiling Farmers. Farmers weeding at noon, sweat down the field soon. Who knows food on a tray, thanks to their toiling day. And in Chinese, now Cantonese again. The title is called Milosch. Lo is like farmer. 鋤禾日當午，汗滴禾下土。誰知盤中餐，粒粒皆辛苦。Especially the last one, 粒粒皆辛苦. It means you don't want to waste every grain of the rice that the farmers spend a lot of hard work every day to make that happen. And with this poem, it's really emphasizing that each farmers how they work hard on getting the grain of rice, even the last piece of the rice. Don't waste that. So it's teaching the kids that, or the children, that don't waste any food. And especially in China or in Hong Kong, we put a lot of attention on family dinner, family meals. We sit in a round table, have many different food dishes to share, but each of us will have a bowl of rice in front of us. And rice to us is a very fundamental food in our meal. So little kids, they like to spend the less time on the meals, and then they will run around and try to play. But with this, parents say, no, you have to finish it because of the hard work from the farmers. You should not wait for it. So we all finish the last grain of the rice every meal. Love, love, guys, and food. All right, so the last one here is called An Ode to the Goose. Goose, 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 you bend your neck towards the sky and sing. Your white feathers float on the emerald water. Your red feet push the clear waves. In Chinese now, it's called wing ngo. Ngo is like goose. So ngo, ngo, ngo. 曲項向天歌，白毛浮綠水，紅掌撥清波. So this is actually a very simple and easy poem. And the story behind it is really simple. But I think the writer for this poem want to emphasize and put together all the beautiful scenic and the nature of China. And anyone like travel to China, you will know that how beautiful and greenish the China, different places in China is. So I believe, in my opinion, is this poem is putting together a simple wording there to describe and capture the moment of the scenic of the China, so everyone can remember. Imagine there are a couple of Chinese and they're hiking by the lake and also walking up to the mountain with this poem, singing the song, and that's amazing and beautiful. And just like today, again, it's a beautiful UN, and I'm really fortunate and grateful again that I can not be an engineer and not the singer-songwriter, and I can actually read out poems, and hopefully next time I get a chance to write my own poem and share with you my new poem.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Robert. All right, we'll take a short break. Okay. Thank you, everybody. To continue with our program, very lucky to have Ronald Lauderbach, who earned an MFA from San Diego State University. He has been an English teacher at San Isidro High School and has had his poetry published widely. More recently, Ron and his wife, Kathleen Perger, spent time in France and created a gorgeous book called Enchantment. Kathleen painted some gorgeous paintings and that will be displayed, and Ron wrote poems that accompany those.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and also to repeat But other people have said thank you for this effort. This is really a fun thing to do. I hope you are encouraged to keep doing it. This is my wife, Kathleen Herder. Kathy, stand up so people can see you. But she really is the power behind this book. The book is based on her paintings, and one time she said, "Hey, could you just write a poem about a couple of my paintings?" I said, "Sure," and it grew into this book. The history is that, and this is the house that we had. We sold it about a year and a half ago, but we owned it for 17 years. And the way that happened was we honeymooned in this house. We were both widowed young, so we married, as middle-aged people, and I was in charge of the honeymoon. And so I found this house advertised by the people that owned the Maison en Provence, which was a little gift shop over in Mission Hills that is no longer there. They've moved back to France. But anyway, when they decided they wanted to sell it, we bought it and enjoyed it for 17 years. And we've spent a lot of time touring around, meeting friends. We had a lot of friends, and absorbing the culture, cooking a lot, and drinking a lot of Côte de Rhône, and then Kathy started painting, and we made the book. So I'm going to read a few of these. I'll read most of them in English. I promised Jeff I would try to read a couple in French. If you don't understand French, you probably won't understand it any better after I speak it. I used to tell Kathy, I'm speaking French like crazy, and these people don't know what I'm saying. So the first one, is that the first one? Okay, that's the first one. I'll find it. Okay, pears in Provence. Showing off on a shelf a pair of pears, quatre pois, du pear du pois, and in French, des pois en Provence. Ces talents superbes sont rayon des pois, du pois de pois. Now we have the pomegranates. The pomegranates. Our neighbor won't notice missing fruit, but perhaps will see stained fingers. Le grenade. Notre voisin ne verra pas les fruits qui manqueront, mais peut-être qu'il verra des doigts tachés. And this is les célages, which means the hay bales, you can see. So hay bales in France enjoy the same evolution as the rest of the world, but still interpret afternoon sun like the smaller cubes did. Farmers now build these huge bales into figures that entertain locals and tourists. And I will not read this one in French.
That's such a beautiful painting, oh my God.
Oh yeah, and we did bring a couple of Kathleen's paintings that are displayed out in front, so take a look. Apero time. Humankind and nature worked hard today, and now it is time in the late afternoon to savor hard proof of their joint success. It's kind of like your Chinese poem, about the kids and the rice, although we were drinking the wine, but same idea. And the next one, please. House with blue shutters. Summer days on the south side, our petite maison proudly presents sun-splashed splendor. La maison en persienne bleu. Le jour d'été du côte sud, notre maisonnette s'annonce fièrement sa splendeur ensoleillée. And now we have one more. This place, this was a magical place. There's a village called Vildu, God's Village. And this painting is a view from the square. There's a square, probably 4 or 5 restaurants around the square. And you just go sit there, the people come out and you buy a pizza or a salad, and it's just so nice. Vildu. Under plum trees, on summer nights, villagers enjoy pizza and pommes frites while they listen to the Seagull Symphony and sip Côte de Rhône. So thank you. I think that's all.
Ask a quick question, Ron.
Yeah.
Did you notice, so spending time in France, hearing French language, as you were writing, do you feel like the French language affected, inspired your poems in English in any way?
Yeah, they did.
The rhythm, maybe the rhythm of the language, and it seems like it must, right?
Just like think the word pommes frites,
Yeah.
French fries.
Yeah,
It's just such a better word.
yeah.
And you know, you conjure up an image. I smell them when I hear that. So yeah, the French and their respect for culinary arts and for just eating in general. And it's a part of their religion almost. So that's where we like to go. I really had to work at not putting on weight when we did that.
Thank you so much. Okay, now, as they say, get ready for something completely different. As with most of the poets presenting today, when I first met Kaz, we ended up talking for several hours over coffee, talking about everything from growing up in the Midwest to mathematics, physics, linguistics, cultures, etc. Today, Kaz will present his genius work inspired by the language of mathematics. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank you for the whole ordeal. This is great, and I'm honored to be with some such interesting poets, and all of you guys are really interesting, fascinating. I'm going to mention this on the back table. There is a QR code that takes you to my Substack, where, can you hear me okay back there? Good. And I have reviews of my mathematical visual poetry on Substack, which is like a blog for writers. And it'll ask you to subscribe. You just, if you don't want to subscribe, you can just click no thanks, and it'll take you to the reviews, which I think you might find interesting. My background is I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Sculpture, and I enjoyed the ekphrastic poetry. I don't know if you're familiar with, I don't know how many people are familiar with that term, but that's when you use visual imagery and poetry together. And that's in the realm of visual poetry. I do mathematical visual poetry. And we had a really fine show at the Bonita Museum here a couple of years ago, a visual poetry show. And then the Bonita Museum is going to do another one in 2026. So that should be fun. So to start with this is called the Gift of Entropy. I think we'll just get into it. I'm going to have to do a little bit of a math lesson first. So These are similar triangles, and similar triangles have a very interesting relationship. They have a proportional relationship. A is to B as D is to E. You can just intuitively, you don't even have to know much about math to intuitively understand that those proportions are there. And you can write it mathematically, this A divided by B equals D divided by E. So this is really synonymous with this. A is to B is D is to E. So you can do a lot of interesting things with that. Let's go to the next slide. Actually, this is what we're going to end up talking about. This is the gift of entropy. But I'm going to pass on that and we'll come back to it. Let's go ahead and go to this next slide here. So if we were to go down to Mission Beach, and I give you a tape measure, and I want you to tell me how tall this palm tree is right here. Well, you're not going to be able to climb the tree. However, it's really interesting is there's a man standing right here, and we've got shadows of the tree and of the man. So let's go to the next slide. So you can see a pair of similar triangles. So we know that the tree's height is to its shadow, is the man's height is to the man's shadow. Okay? So we can set the equation up, next slide please. We can set the equation up like we had A divided by B equals D divided by E. The tree's height divided by the tree shadow equals the man's height divided by the man's shadow. Next slide, please. So we just solve the equation for the tree's height, and we get the tree's height is equal to the man's height times the tree shadow divided by the man's shadow. Well, we can measure these. We can reach these. We can't reach that, but we can reach these. So next slide, please. So we measure those. We get 6 feet, 50 feet, 5 inches divided by. So we just multiply these two together, divide through, and next slide, please. Voila. 32 feet, 8 inches. That's how tall the tree is. Pretty magical, you know. That's the magic of math. What does that have to do with poetry? Nothing. Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. We make mundane comparisons all the time, you know. Can you hear me? If everybody can hear me,
You're good back there? Okay.
you okay back there? He's got a thumbs up, so everybody can hear me. Good, thank you. So,
Do you want me to have him hold this microphone? Would that be better? You don't mind.
okay, does this help? Okay. So, this is a mundane example of we make comparisons all the time. So, we have apples are to apple butter as peanuts are to peanut butter. Right? So we can just set up the equation. The value of apples divided by the value of apple butter equals the value of peanuts divided by the value of peanut butter. Next slide, please. Because we can solve the equation 4 different ways, next slide, please. Here we have apples equal apple butter times peanuts divided by peanut butter. Now the logic is rigidly in place. It's much fuzzier though. So let's get more poetic. Let's go to the next slide. So, in Korea, I'm married to a Korean, so it's given me access to the monasteries in Korea. And then also, I'm involved in the Buddhist culture here. So there is a Buddhist Zen center near Banning, California, out in the middle of nowhere. And I want to tell you that 2,000 years ago, before Buddhism came into Korea, they had a shamanistic society in place. And one of the deities, the mountain spirit, Sanshin, mountain spirit, is found there in all the temples in Korea that somehow got absorbed into the Buddhist canon. And so you'll find shrines for the mountain spirit at the temples. Anyway, the mountain spirit gives wisdom to all the creatures on the mountain. So When I drove into the parking lot at this Buddhist temple, there was a tree growing out of a rock. And I thought, wow, the mountain spirit certainly is giving some wisdom to this tree to deal with that adversity. So I said, oh, I can write that equation. You know, wisdom is to adversity is the wind is to a cage. Or you can solve it differently. Wisdom is to the wind as adversity is to a cage. Next slide, please. So, in cognitive science, cognitive scientists have mapped out and created the language to understand how metaphor works. And all metaphors, conceptual metaphors, are a one-to-one mapping between two conceptual domains: a rigid, concrete source domain and an abstract target domain. So the mechanism by which the abstract is comprehended in terms of the concrete is called conceptual metaphor. And poetic metaphor is, for the most part, an extension of our everyday conventional system of metaphorical thought. So, let's go to the next slide, please. So you can see what we have here. Each conceptual metaphor is the same structure. Each is a unidirectional mapping from entities in one conceptual domain to corresponding entities in another conceptual domain. As such, the conceptual metaphors are part of our system of thought. Their primary function is to allow us to reason about relatively abstract domains using the inferential structure of relatively concrete domains. So let's make an example so that we can get past this. So death is eternal sleep. That's a metaphor. Okay. So what's the concrete part? What's the concrete domain here? Death. We know what death is. Eternal sleep, not so much. So that's the target domain, the abstract domain. So death is eternal sleep. That's metaphor. All conceptual metaphors follow this same structure. It's one-to-one mapping. So next slide, please. So let's come back to this. So we have wisdom is to the wind. We know what the wind is. It's concrete. Wisdom, not so much. So we have a metaphor there. And then we have adversity is to a cage. A cage, we know what a cage is. But adversity, not so much. So we have another metaphor there. And then the equal sign is like the word is. So you have wisdom is to the wind, adversity is to a cage, so you have a third metaphor there. So we have three metaphors intertwined in one mathematical expression. So this is an example of mathematical visual poetry, because there's another thing, is there's conceptual blending. That's another cognitive science term where we blend different concepts together. So the adversity the tree is experiencing, the adversity in the equation, the wind in the tree, the wind in the equation, so we have a conceptual blending as well. So, next slide, please. So I was hanging out with a friend of mine who was a street rock and roll musician, very angry young man. And he was really irritated at the church and how money, in his mind, corrupts the church. And he said, God's blood is money. Whether or not this is true, this is what he said. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I can express that. Man is to God as blood is to money. Or man is to blood as God is to money. You can solve it either way. Next slide. So I was thinking, this was actually before the Ukraine war, but the Ukrainian war is a perfect example of this. I thought about how does money affect war? Okay, so I said the victor is to honor in war as money is the righteous effort. So both of these are a little dark and sarcastic, right? Now, what they both have in common, though, is money, okay? And both of these equations. So next slide, please. So we can solve these equations for money. So we have money equals righteous effort times the victor divided by honor in war, this, and money equals this as well. So in mathematics, if this is equal to money, and this is equal to money, then this equals this, okay? So now we can, next slide please. We can set those equal to each other Now the context of money drops completely out. You don't even have money in there. Well, we know it's there, but you don't have it. So now let's solve this for righteous effort. Next slide, please. Excuse me, honor and war. So here we've solved it for honor and war. Honor, let's listen to it now without the money. Honor and war is equal to man times righteous effort times the victor divided by God times blood. Sounds like a patriot. You know? You get the money out of it. Yeah. So it's interesting how we can play with language and mathematics, and this is really what we're doing here. Next slide, please. So these are basically, you know, what we're doing here in the structure. A is to A, Y is to B, or X is to Y, is A is to B. You can solve it either way. Next slide, please. And then you can do conceptual blending between the variables and the images in a mathematical visual poem, or any visual poem. You don't have to have mathematics. You can deal with visual elements in a visual poem. If you look at René Magritte, the surrealist painter, you know, he did a lot of visual poetry. There was lots of concepts that they were doing, where he was doing conceptual blending. Next. So here's the equation in this gift of entropy we just briefly saw a while ago. So nature is to the garden as the despot is to the slave. Next slide, please. Nature is to the garden as the despot is to the slave. So this was inspired by a realization that I had. I had been studying some philosophers, and they were talking about theodicy, which was the concept that St. Augustine came up with to save God for there being evil in the world or sin in the world. That you have free will. My brain froze up for a second. And we all have free will. That was St. Augustine. He created that concept to get God off the hook for theodicy. But I was curious, you know, studying physics, the concept of entropy basically shows us that in a closed system, you have two different energy levels. They will blend automatically together. Like take hot coffee and cold cream. You put the cold cream in the hot coffee. You don't have to stir it. If you just wait a little while, it'll stir itself. Entropy will mix it. Entropy is what's killing us right now in our body. That's why we're dying, is entropy. We're fighting as a society over oil, over energy. We're always, even on mundane levels, in traffic, you see people cutting somebody off. That's entropy at work, you know, battling for superiority of energy. So I thought, well, entropy is really what the apple is. So I titled this The Gift of Entropy, and the equation says nature, and now what is nature? Is that God? Is that nature? Nature is to the garden as the despot. The slave owner is to the slave. So this piece is like most of my work, you know, poses a lot of questions to ponder. I think that's it.
Can you tell us, you had a t-shirt and a calculus equation about love and ego.
Yeah, I don't have a slide for that, and I don't know how well you'll be able to remember this, but I have a t-shirt that I made that has love equals the limit of the ego as it approaches 0 of 1 over the ego. Now, if you know math, you might be able to figure that out. But basically, if you can just imagine 1 divided by the ego, and this limit thing basically says get rid of the ego. Take it to zero, the value of the ego to zero. And then you have 1 over the ego. Well, Isaac Newton knew that you can't divide by zero, so he came up with this idea called a limit, where you can get infinitely close to zero without being zero. Therefore, we can use it in mathematics and calculate with it. Newton was just off the charts, brilliant. So basically, it says the limit, take the limit of the ego, take it to zero. In other words, get rid of the ego and see what happens to love. So you have 1 over the ego, 1 divided by the ego. So let's just cut it in half first, okay? 1 divided by 1/2. Okay, so if you remember in grade school, to solve fractions, the division of fractions, you invert and multiply. So you have 1 divided by 1 over 2, you invert, so love becomes 2. Okay, so basically cutting the ego in half doubles love. Okay, so now if you make it smaller, like 1/100th, 1 divided by 1 over 100, you invert, multiply, love becomes 100. Let's make it really, really small, 1/1,000,000th, 1 divided by 1 over 1,000,000. Now you invert, multiply, love becomes 1,000,000. So you can see, this says take it to zero, get rid of the ego. As the ego approaches zero, love approaches infinity.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And again, if you are interested in any of the art reviews on some of my pieces, it might even make things a little more interesting. There is a piece of paper back here on the table that you can use the QR code. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, I will be wrapping up the day today. In my younger days, I was fortunate to study the linguistics of American Sign Language. I was always mesmerized by the poetry created by signers. So it's been very many years. I was never a fluent signer, but what I would like to do is to present some of the concepts that I remember that were just so amazing, and things that you can do in the sign language that you just can't do with the spoken language. So, in sign language, you have finger spelling, Jeff, okay? You have movement, signs have different movement. There's different hand shapes. There's classifiers, so this is a class. English doesn't really have classifiers. Spanish has L and La, masculine and feminine. But sign language has a lot more. You have for a person, this would be a vehicle, this could be an animal. And then location, where the sign is made. Here, 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 makes a difference. So you can create poems where you use signs that have the same movement, for example, or signs that have the same hand shape. Also, obviously, sign language has the ability to use space. So I'm going to give you an example. This is the verb to give. Okay? Now, if I wanted to say, I'm going to have a conversation between Tim and Mark. I'm going to say, Tim here, Mark here. For the rest of the conversation, these are their pronouns. So to give, I give to Tim. I give to Mark. Very cool. Mark gives to Tim, right? So how efficient that is. I remember a poem, and I don't remember who did it. It's a long time ago, but it was beautiful. This was about this space shuttle Challenger. And the poem went like this. It started with a countdown of the numbers. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you end up with this 1, which also happens to be the classifier for the space shuttle. And it takes off. Right? So beautiful, right? You have the countdown, and then the blasting off, and then the resolution. Also, another thing that's amazing about sign language is this ability to, almost like cinematography, you can zoom in and zoom out. If I wanted to tell you that there's a long line of people standing across the street, maybe waiting to get into a restaurant, I can go like this, right? So representing people, there's a long line. But I can zoom in, and if I want to say I'm part of that line, and it's very uncomfortable and it's very crowded, I can do this, right? So I've gone from this, telling you that there's a line, to I'm in this line, and my posture and my expression tells you, wow, I'm really not comfortable. A better example of this is there's a great famous poem by Sam Sapala called The Best Whiskey in the West. And in this story, there's a point where he goes to a bar, takes a shot of this whiskey, and he just goes up into the sky, right? He just explodes. So he could have, like at the space shuttle, I could have just used a classifier and shown the person who drank the whiskey went up and then came down. But instead, he's able to zoom in, as it were. So take the drink of whiskey, going to take off, and now I am that person, and I'm going into outer space, and what do I see? Stars, and I'm going so fast, and I'm getting higher and higher, and then I start slowing down, and now I start going the other, I'm falling back down to Earth, right, until I finally land. So just amazing things that you could do with sign languages that you can do with the spoken language. So you can find lots of ASL poetry online. I'd recommend it. Just watch it, and you'll see some pretty cool things. So, folks, I can't really thank you enough for being here. This was wonderful. If I could have all the poets come on stage for a moment. I have just a little presentation. It's in celebration of poetry across languages, 2025 National Poetry Month. Thank you for sharing your poetry at the Chula Vista Civic Center. I wrote this little thing. Please come. Languages differ, poetic forms differ, but humanity remains the same. So, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
And Kaz. And if we could get a photo.
Is there a way to turn off the screen so you guys?
Yes. Yeah, try, or, that's a good question.
You can do a triangle.
There.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Shall we all be a little
Yes,
closer?
everyone like a poetry family.
Yeah.
Almost over the shoulders.
Let's go this way.
We're doing an equation, super close. There we go, nice. Okay, nice smile right here. Ready? On 3, and you'll twist it. These guys, you 3, twist this way. In. You, yes. Now you guys, and then everyone bring it. Perfect. On 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. Nice happy teeth. Here we go. Like you guys want a million, but 2, 2, 3. Nice. Last one. Smile at each other. Just fake it. Go ha ha ha. And then back on camera. 1, 2, 3. You guys are golden. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.